Hello, I'm Michael Toms. Welcome to the Wisdom Channel. My guest today is Barbara Brennan, one of the foremost healers and teachers of alternative health. Barbara's the author of Hands of Light, and the other is called Light Emerging. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome Barbara. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So tell me, as someone who was trained with an advanced degree in astrophysics, you worked as a research scientist at NASA. How did you get into alternative healing? How did that happen?
I lived in Washington in the 60s and early 70s, and the civil rights movement was going on. And I got involved in that, and then became involved in the human potential movement. And from there, everything just opened up. I studied bioenergetics and core energetics and began giving body psychotherapy sessions. And during that time, I started seeing energy fields around people and inside of people. I started seeing visions. So everything changed very quickly during that couple of years. And from there on, I became interested in inner space from the outer space explorations I'd been doing before that.
Good analogy there.
Yeah.
I know you studied with John Parakos and core energetics, and probably many of our viewers have not heard of core energetics. What is the basis of that?
It's based on bioenergetics, which is body psychotherapy that was developed with Al Lowen, and before that Wilhelm Reich was working on body psychotherapy.
Yes.
And Wilhelm Reich studied with Freud, so the lineage goes directly back to Freud. But what they did was added the body, the shape of the body, and how the body is used, and connected that with psychodynamics and early childhood development.
It's interesting, Wilhelm Reich, of course, showing how far we've come in the acceptance of healing methods. Wilhelm Reich was actually put in jail for his beliefs.
Right. And so that was primarily based on energy and the body, bioenergetics, and then John added the spiritual dimension, core energetics, and John can perceive auras too, and that's where I finally found somebody that could also see what I was seeing, and that was a great confirmation, and he's been a great teacher to me.
Do you have to be special or have special gifts to see auras?
No, it's a talent like anything else. Everybody can perceive auras. I believe everybody saw them when they were first born and in childhood, and that perception just simply wasn't confirmed and kind of became unnoticeable. Essentially, people just don't notice it. Their attention is not drawn to it. And through some very simple exercises, I was just teaching these exercises. In about 15 minutes, I can teach people how to see the field in a very general, simple way. Then it takes years to develop the very specific vision that can get very, very useful.
Why? Why would one want to see aura? How is that helpful?
It's directly connected to your health and well-being, and the aura is essentially the vehicle for the mind-body connection, and it is made of life energy, which means energy and consciousness together. You can't separate the two, so that an aura changes second to second with how a person is thinking, feeling, where they are experiencing in their body, the pain or pleasure. And so second to second, one can read what is happening in another individual and know it. And then I took that to the level of healing, because the phenomena occurs in the auric field before it does in the physical body. The aura has a very specific shape and form, and when that shape becomes distorted through various different life experiences, that distortion affects the body's immune system eventually, or other factors in the body, and will cause a weakness that can then eventually allow a disease to take place in the body.
You use a term called the health field.
Yeah.
What is the health field?
Well, we all live in a natural health field. That is, we're surrounded by life energy fields, and they are healthy. And it is only human beings that have polluted those fields, and we're doing it more and more with electrical pulses and, of course, the different various kinds of ways we pollute the earth. But essentially, as you move to higher frequencies, the field is very strong and very powerfully moved toward health. It has an intention for health, for recovery and health, as does the human body. So healing is a matter of activating that system that's already in place.
And then there's another term you use called the life pulse. What is the life pulse?
Yeah, the life pulse is something that can become very, very complicated. It has to do with creativity and creation, even manifestation into the physical plane. But there is a pulse of life. There are many pulses. All the organs in the body pulse, all the cells pulses. There are pulses of awareness, and there are pulses of creation that move through the higher levels of the auric field and come down, or precipitated down, then into the physical world and become manifested. So becoming aware of this pulse and living within this awareness, which is actually synonymous with awakening, the process of awakening, brings us to health, because our creative impulses are directly related to our health or our illness. And there's an expansion phase, a stasis, and then a contraction, and this is occurring all of the time, and in many different rhythms, shall we say. They're all life creative rhythms.
Barbara, what happens in the training of people at the school to learn how to do this? What takes place?
We do a lot of different forms of training. We have several basic programs, such as anatomy and physiology of the physical body, as well as anatomy and physiology of all the auric fields, because they do have a very specific structure and function. In addition to that, we have, of course, healing techniques and techniques of high sense perception, that's perceiving the auric field. We also do straight psychology, body psychodynamics, learning to study different diseases and how they affect the body as well as the auric field, and different methods of healing. We teach how to interface with the medical profession, with the students, and we teach them how to set up a healing practice. We also teach things like creativity and how one's creativity is related to one's illness or health. And we cover various different religious topics, because healing really covers all the ground of psychology as well as spirituality. One of the things interesting about the school now is, out of the 700 students, 200 are from out of the United States. So we have over 25 countries represented from all of the continents. And so we have a very international flavor, and people from all religions are there. And so we do ceremonies as well to include all of the different religions on earth and the different ways and walks of life, to bring ourselves together as a human family, a global family.
How do people outside the country hear about the school?
Well, my books are in 16 languages at this point, and so they read the books and then they hear about it.
And they
come. They come.
So when someone graduates from the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, they receive a certificate, and what happens? Are they licensed in some way or certified in some way?
Yeah, well, the school certifies them. It is a 4-year part-time training program, meaning it's 4 years off campus. And then people do come on campus for 5 weeks a year to study, and then they go home and do a lot of home study. So it's a university without walls kind of program. We do certify them. We do give continuing education credits for nurses and acupuncturists and massage therapists, and we're working on it for medical doctors. There is no way to license healers at this point in this country, and we are working on that by having a rigorous program with exams and practicum, and people must move from each level to go through the program before graduation. For example, seniors, they write a thesis on healing. They do a case presentation like in regular psychology.
You mentioned that you help your students bridge into the medical profession or make connections with the medical profession. And I'm wondering, because this is, I would say, non-traditional versus regular, what we understand as allopathic medicine. How do you create those bridges?
Well, we have visiting professors from different medical schools come and lecture in what we call the healing, medicine, and disease topics in the evening. And they come and talk about different diseases. This year, we're hoping to create some intern programs in different teaching hospitals around the country. Since our students come from all over the country and the world, we're going to create these programs in a lot of different things. This is just in the talking stages at this point, but we have several different places interested in doing this.
So if someone out there watching this wants to find, say, a healer that's graduated from Barbara Brennan School of Healing, how would they find them?
They call the school. The phone number is 516-329-0951. We also have a website, barbarabrennan.com. Just look up my name on the internet and there'll be ways there. We do send out a graduate list. We have at least 500 graduates at this point. The school's been in existence for 14 years. Started out very small and now it's larger. We do have many physicians in the program as well as nurses and other medical professionals training. Several physicians now on staff as teachers. So it's very exciting right now.
Yes. I'm Michael Toms, and I'm speaking with Barbara Brennan, the founder of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing and author of Hands of Light and Light Emerging. You're watching the Wisdom Channel. Hello, I'm Michael Toms, and I'm here with Barbara Brennan, founder of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing and one of the foremost healers and teachers of alternative health in the United States, indeed in the world today. She's also the author of Hands of Light and Light Emerging. Barbara, as someone who's been practicing healing for years, particularly in this country, and teaching healing, what kind of changes have you noticed, say, over the last 15, 20 years in the whole field of health as related to new and alternative modes of healing?
Yeah. The whole field of health is becoming more and more open to all of the different ways of healing someone. Instead of having it be mechanistic and labeling diseases, we now look at the whole person, and there's a much more integrative view of health and healing, and this country certainly is moving more and more into prevention. And of course the auric field is working, and the auric field is one of the major ways of prevention because the illness shows in the illness shows in the auric field before it's precipitated into the physical body. So it's possible to diagnose things before they actually can be perceived or seen at all in the physical body. And I've done that several times, like seeing a possibility of somebody getting diabetes, and the tests in the lab couldn't show that until a year later. But I knew that it was occurring in his body because I could see it going on in his field. Same thing happens with, say, heart disease. There's an area it's called the heart chakra. It's an energy center around the heart, and if that gets clogged up and stagnated, just like we have mucus when we have a cold, the auric field will gather mucus here. It'll be dark. That's a precursor to cardiovascular disease, congestive heart disease. Excuse me.
So what happens is the colors change in the aura? Is it a color?
Well, it's color and form, and it's very specific. So in the heart, it would be a dark red color in the area of the heart, and that's a precursor to angina that will then become congestive heart disease. And because the field has a very specific structure, it can also get torn. Imagine lines of light standing light beams that have little flecks of light moving through them. Those lines can become torn, and then the energy field is leaking energy, and somebody can become depleted, or it can be stagnated. Can I give you a couple of simple examples?
Please do, yes.
For example, when somebody sprains their ankle, and it's the kind of sprain you would be on crutches for 2 weeks, say, that bad a sprain. What occurs in the sprain is the ankle twists and the lines of energy moving up through, we'll pretend this is a foot, through the leg, those lines actually get broken, and you can feel pain shooting up the leg. That's a line being broken, a line of light. when the healer catches that immediately and begins restructuring and putting all those lines back, by the time the healer is done, which is like 20 minutes, there's no swelling, no bruising, and the person can walk away.
Oh.
That's how strong it is. And that holds for bleeding, burn, cuts that bleed, burns, strains, sprains. That's just a simple example. And then we can move on to, bigger issues, bigger health issues.
So what would be some of the, what would be some of the larger issues that you would deal with?
Well, the different kinds of things I've done, working with, for example, somebody had a goiter, of swelling on the thyroid gland. In a healing, it disappeared. She was supposed to have surgery the next week. These are, of course, the good cases.
Yes.
There was a case of a woman who was actually told to get a hysterectomy. She didn't tell me that, and I'm glad she didn't, because that would have frightened me. But at the time, she didn't tell me, and I worked on her field, and I saw what was going on inside of her uterus. And this is one of the things with auric vision. It's possible to see inside the body. It's not regular light, but we know we can see inside the body with X-rays. So apparently we're looking with some other frequency of energy, but I could see inside that she had had a miscarriage and some of the placenta was still left inside of the uterus. And so through healing techniques, I removed that, the field of the leftover cells, and then she washed them out the next time she had her period, her menses, and she was fine. And what she needed to do, though, was to go on a diet, and of course I told her to get checked out with the doctors again. She got another biopsy a month later, and she was fine. And this was 15 or so years ago. She's got 3 kids now. She didn't have any at the time.
This almost sounds shamanistic. I mean, I'm thinking of some of the indigenous cultures that practice natural healing, where the shaman comes and actually removes something from the body, nobody quite knows what, but then the person is healed.
Yeah, it's very similar to that, and I know many Native Americans have told me that what I'm doing is similar to what they do. I wasn't trained that way. I was primarily trained through my own channeling. Of course, I was trained in the psychology and the bioenergetics, but then when I did the healing, it was primarily through guidance and my own instructions that I received.
So you think there's a relationship between our health and spiritual?
The spiritual, the emotional, mental, and the physical are all related, and the auric field is the vehicle. And there are certain frequencies in the field or levels of the field that relate to the physical sensation. Then the next level relates to emotions, feeling about yourself, the next to your mental activity, and then the next one relates to interactions with human beings. And all of these things have very specific forms in the field. And then what happens is the distortions occur, and those distortions are very specific to the illness. And most people don't know that part, that it becomes extremely specific. Like different illnesses show different disfigurations in the auric field. So it becomes fairly easy to diagnose when one perceives the field.
There's an emerging field of medicine called energy medicine.
Yeah.
Would what you do fit within that area?
Well, yes. Energy medicine also includes machinery of different types of, creating fields. And yes, that fits in there. There's different kinds of energy medicine. But essentially, a healer learns to manipulate the energy field right through the healer's own energy field, and you learns to regulate that and create health in the other person or restructure the field. And then usually people come back once a week.
Earlier you touched on your instructions that you receive, and that left begging instructions from who and what.
Well, when one opens one's high sense perception to perceive the field, when you first perceive the first 3 levels of the field, which I would say are the lowest frequency bands, having been a scientist, that's the way I talk about it, one simply sees the field. But when you move your conscious awareness to the next level, which is the 4th level, you also begin perceiving non-physical beings. And for me, when this happened 20-some years ago, it was pretty distressing because nobody else could do this, at least nobody that I knew. So I would be, in these situations where my daughter, who I was taking to school, she's in grade school, would be talking to me on this side, and I would be seeing this guide or angel on this side who's talking to me. And it was disconcerting.
Yes. Right.
Hard to listen to both.
Yes.
So I learned very early on to ask if the phenomena was useful rather than if it were real, because I was pretty much based in physics at that time, having worked for NASA. And I found the phenomena to be very useful. I just kept collecting the data or the information that I received, and when it didn't make any sense, I would just remember it until it finally did. And some things didn't even make sense until 10 years later. It's still, I say, oh, that's what that's been. I see things. Like recently, I see all these geometric patterns, but I've never studied sacred geometry. So when I'm doing this healing, and I go into an altered state and do healing when there's 800 people in the room, so I work from the stage with everyone, and I see all these different geometric patterns that form in the room. And then I heard about sacred geometry and that these patterns are all related to the creation of life on Earth, or how it is formed.
Barbara, thanks for being with us. My name is Michael Toms. I've been speaking with Barbara Brennan, the founder of the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, also the author of Hands of Light and Light Emerging.